Hello everyone, and welcome to part 1 of our Digimon Adventure, the novel series. So, it's just me, May, and I'll be going through Onkei's translations of the 3 Digimon Adventure novels, which basically sort of retell the story of Digimon Adventure. Mostly it's the same, but they change a couple of things, so it is a good way of getting that telling of the story out to people who may not be reading it. You can read it online with Onkei's translations. I'll be linking those, and thank you so much to Onkei for translating the entire of the novel, because Onkei just finished the translation. So I asked Onkei, and I was like, hey, can I do this? And thankfully we got permission, so thank you very much for that. If you want to read along, you can find Onkei's site, and we'll be linking it, or you could just listen along as sort of like an audiobook type deal. So we'll just be reading the prologue and the first 2 parts of chapter 1. So we'll be finishing to Beyond the Aurora, which is the second bit of the first chapter. It's sort of in mini parts in each chapter, which is pretty standard with light novels. So if you want to buy these, you can get them pretty easily just online. I got mine when I was in Japan, but you can get them just from Japan as in the website, but you can also get it just from Mandarake. There was a couple when I've been there the other times, and there's only 3 novels, but obviously they're in Japanese, so this is the English translation that Onkei has provided us. So without further ado, let's begin. Prologue. The rulers of darkness wish to seal the 4 pillars of the world by all means to gain power. Digimon Book of Revelations, Chapter 8, Verse 5. In a sky so blue that it looked as if it was freshly painted, something white hurtled through, marring its even surface. Twin engines' roars could be heard not far behind, and their source was revealed as red beings charged in, following the white object in hot pursuit. The white object being chased had smooth skin that appeared to be made of metal, glittering brightly from the sunlight shining down on it. Its extraordinary long arms, longer than its own bodies. It was carefully clutching several smaller objects that looked similar to eggs. Its pursuers, on the other hand, were shaped like red cylindrical objects. A countless number of them had merged together into a battle formation, and grenades could be seen being fired from their arms. The white object swiftly moved left and right to dodge their attack. Because there were too many enemies attacking it all at once, it could not avoid them perfectly. Many times it got shot in the back, in the shoulders, and once even blasted in the back of its hand. When that happened, one of the eggs fell from its grasp. The white object noticed this right away and tried to fly down to retrieve it, but the pursuer's persistent attacks prevented it from doing so. Gazing back at the falling egg, with something akin to regret, the white object ascended once more into the skies to continue its escape. As the barrage faded into the distance, the falling egg dropped down a dense, dark forest that extended for miles. Chapter 1. Drifting Ashore. Part 1. That summer. Are you okay? Taichi Yagami asked his younger sister Hikari as he stuck cooling gel sheet on her forehead. The poor girl was shivering under bed covers with a fever. With the brightest smile that she could manage, Hikari said, "Yes, I see," Taichi complied, but inside he was berating himself. He now knew in hindsight that she had been showing cold symptoms since yesterday, but because he hadn't recognized them for what they were, he had dragged Hikari to go out shopping with him for things that they would bring on camp today. Although the shopping list had only consisted of loads of candy. He had thought she was acting strange, but he didn't think that it was because of a cold. It must have started yesterday morning when they were watching television together. At that time, a news broadcast was reporting abnormal weather all around the world. Even though it was midsummer, America was covered in heavy snow, while heavy rain flooded the Middle East. In contradiction to that, the swamps in the Southeast Asia dried up completely from drought. The weather forecaster said this was all due to destruction of the environment, but Hikari said, "He's wrong." "Here?" Taichi, who had been stuffing his cheeks with toast topped with egg and round slices of tomato and ham, gave Hikari a strange look. Hikari's eyes stayed wholeheartedly fixed on the TV screen, which wasn't showing anything in particular as far as Taichi could see. As if in a daze, she softly whispered an unfamiliar word. Digimon. Digimon? What's that? Taichi asked with raised eyebrows. This time, Hikari pulled herself from the screen to give him a wide-eyed look. "You can't see it, brother?" she asked in turn. "See what?" Taichi looked at the TV screen. "I don't see anything." "Oh, never mind then. Don't worry about it." Hikari smiled, before she turned her gaze back to the TV again. Her long eyelashes, as Taichi looked at his younger sister's profile, made her appear somewhat forlorn to him. She probably got the fever then, Taichi realized now. If he had checked her forehead that time and had allowed her to rest, her cold might have been easily prevented right from the start. Hikari had just been looking forward to the camping trip just as much as he was. In noisy crowds that stood before the buses lined up for departure, the children assembled into their assigned groups as they chatted endlessly about the anime that they had seen yesterday, the new video game that was released, and the plot developments in the latest weekly manga issue, or about the romantic relationships between popular idols who had a lot of publicity lately in a weekly picture magazine. But Yamato Yoshida did not involve himself in any of these groups. It wasn't because he was lonely. In fact, many of his classmates would greet him with a friendly "yo" or "hi" when they came across him. Naturally, Yamato would respond back with a smile. A small boy wearing a green hat and a long-sleeved t-shirt that was the same colour as the sleeveless t-shirt Yamato was wearing was standing next to Yamato. Although there were many people who spoke to Yamato, none of them spoke to the little boy, and the boy himself never waved his hand in greeting at anyone else. He simply stuck to Yamato's side as he quietly looked around, grinning broadly at his surroundings. The situation was as it should be, for this little boy was not part of the school, and thus was not acquainted with any of the students there. He was Yamato's younger brother, Takeru Takeishi. The reason they had different last names was because the two were now living separately as a result of their parents' divorce. Takeru was allowed to participate in Yamato's school camping trip after receiving special permission from Mr. Fujiyama, the teacher in charge of organising it. Takeru himself didn't appear worried, but Yamato was secretly anxious that Takeru would not be able to get along with the other children. He thought things would be better if Takeru had never come to begin with. It all began on the first week of July, right before the summer vacation started. Because their parents had agreed to visitation rights after the divorce was settled, Takeru came to stay the night at Yamato's and his dad's all-male two-person apartment in Odaiba. At that time, Takeru's sharp eyes had spotted the date of August 1st on the calendar circled in red. When their father told him that that was the day of the school camping trip, Takeru explained that he wanted to go too. Their father surely must have shared Yamato's feelings of dread. His troubles had increased because that meant calling up his ex-wife and persuading her to agree. Of course, although he complained out loud that it was a bother, his expression didn't make it appear that it really was. The day before camp, which was yesterday, Yamato went to his mother's residence in Sangenjaya to pick up Takeru. "You should come over here yourself to play once in a while, Yamato," his mother said a little awkwardly to her first son as she stuffed Takeru's backpack with snacks until the seams were bursting open. Yeah. Even Yamato thought that his own short reply sounded cold. "You should," his mother repeated brightly, although her smile was somewhat forced. He already knew, even before the conversation started, that Yamato would never voluntarily drop by for a visit. Being aware of Yamato's serious personality, she did not doubt that he considered that innocuous action the equivalent of betraying his father. "Okay, Mama, I'm going now." With Takeru's packing completed, his mother accompanied him all the way to the apartment's entrance hall. "Takeru, don't cause too much trouble for your brother, okay?" Her words sounded as if she was leaving her only child in custody of a stranger. Of course, she meant no ill will behind them, but Yamato couldn't help muttering, "Doesn't matter if he does. We're brothers." Part 2. On the other side of the Aurora. Throughout the entire bus ride, Mimi Tachikawa was so absorbed in gossiping with her friends, Taoko and Michan, that she never bothered to look at the gradually changing scenery through the window. Nor was she interested in doing so anyway. If you were to ask her later what landmarks the bus went through to get to the campgrounds in Makami Canyon, she would have told you she had no idea. "Okay, we're here." Mr. Fujiyama's loud voice was useful to him during the school morning's assemblies, for it could reach all the way the back of the auditorium without the assistance of a microphone. Within the narrow bus, however, it caused everyone's ears to ring. "The group you belong to is listed in the printout I gave you before we left. Your leaders will be wearing armbands with their names on it, so find them using that and stick with your group. After that, listen to what the leaders tell you. That is all." Mimi looked down at the official-looking printout in her hands. In felt-tip pen was handwritten, "Kido, Group Leader 6th Grade, Joe Kido." "Hey, do you know who Kido is?" Mimi asked Taoko, who was sitting next to her. Taoko's handout had Arihara Group written on it. "Kido-san would be..." Searching outside the window, it wasn't long before Taoko pointed. "Over there!" The boy she was indicating was dressed neatly in an open collared shirt with an Ivy League-styled vest. Besides wearing glasses and the armband that signified he was a leader, his shoulder was burdened by a square-shaped bag labelled Emergency Food Supply. Perhaps he was also feeling the heavy responsibility that came with being a leader, because his face looked so stiff. He doesn't seem that reliable," Mimi mused, but she was interrupted by Michan, who motioned to them hurriedly, saying, "Look, look!" Michan was pointing at the front of the bus, where a boy wearing a long-sleeved orange shirt was about to get off. Even Mimi knew who that was. They hardly ever talked together, but he was her classmate, Koshiro Izumi. Michan wanted them to look what Koshiro was carrying on his back. A wireless laptop. Aren't all laptops wireless? Anyway, isn't he so weird for bringing that all the way to camp? Michan sneered with mocking laughter, but Mimi didn't laugh. She simply didn't find any reason to. Hey, Sora! Lowering the empty buckets she held with both arms, Sora stopped walking down the stone steps leading to the water supply to see the person who had called out to her coming up. It was Kenji, the self-proclaimed Akita of Odaiba, who played defense on Sora's soccer team. What is it? Sora asked him. Do you know where Taichi is? I can't find him anywhere. No idea, Sora said bluntly. We're in different groups, so of course I won't know. Oh, Kenji nodded in understanding, but he grumbled under his breath as he continued his ascent up the stairs. Because of the smooth two-top coordination that Taichi and Sora showed within their soccer plays, he must have gotten the mistaken impression that they shared some telepathic link. Perhaps he thought Sora would use it to get Taichi to come flying to see him. When she reached the water supply, Sora turned the faucets to fill the 2 buckets. A small brook gurgled nearby, but due to sanitary conditions, their printout had specifically pointed out, underlined with a very thick, wavy line and everything, that they were to use the water for the water supply for cooking. After the buckets were filled to the top, Sora grabbed one in each hand and climbed back up to the stone steps. The weight of the buckets made her arms feel like they were being pulled from their sockets. Normally this task would have been left to the boys, while the girls were assigned easier work, such as cutting vegetables or gossiping as they gathered firewood. However, Sora disliked doing such things. As a person who ordinarily never wore a skirt if she could help it, she consciously denied her position as a girl. Such masculine traits of hers were only further reinforced after she joined the all-male soccer club. Sweat began to appear on Sora's brow, and she lowered the buckets onto the ground to wipe it with her arm. Bothered by the hair that clung around her eyes, she took off her hat to fix the messy strands. Freed from its confines, her short hair stuck up in odd directions. After resetting her hat in the rightful place, she squared herself and said, "Now then." The buckets held once again in her grasp. She was just about to continue climbing the stairs when she noticed Taichi above her, napping on the branch of a thick tree, with his arms propped behind his head. "Taichi, what are you doing over there?" Not bothered to move his posture, Taichi simply lifted his head to look down in Sora's direction. "Nothing," he answered lazily. Even when she said, "Kenji was looking for you." "Oh, okay," was his sluggish reply. Deducing that Taichi was slacking off from his duties, Sora knew that anything she said to him was going to be futile. So instead, she asked him something that had been bothering her since they had gotten here. "By the way, I haven't seen Hikari-chan around." Sora had heard from Hikari herself that she was very excited for today's camping trip. "Yeah, she had a fever." "A summer cold?" Sora asked sympathetically. "I guess." "I see. That's too bad." "Yeah." Taichi trailed off when he noticed something white was drifting from the front of his eyes. "What's that?" he wondered, and reached out a hand to the sky. Feeling a small tingling of cold on the back of his hand, he brought it back to see a drop of water on his skin. It may seem hard to believe. It was snow. "Hey, it's snowing!" Taichi called out to Sora below, but she had already noticed. A gust of wind causing large snowflakes to whirl wildly behind Taichi had caught her eye. "It looks like there's going to be a blizzard," Sora shouted out at him. "Let's hurry back to the others." "I don't believe this." Staring out the window of the small shrine he had secluded himself in, the smell of its rotten wood tickling his nostrils, Koshiro Izumi whispered to himself in blank amazement. The sudden snowstorm had blotted out the summer greenery with white in the twinkling of an eye. It must be due to abnormal weather that we've been having. Resigning himself to the fact that he wouldn't be able to leave this place for a while, Koshiro brought his pineapple laptop onto his lap and waited for it to boot up as he connected it to his cellular phone. The laptop's OS flickered on with an ease that showed he was accustomed to doing this. He double-clicked on the icon to his internet browser and attempted to connect to a major search engine he had bookmarked. He wanted to check the homepage of the latest weather forecast. The sound of the modem and then the fast-forward dialing from his cellular phone could be heard within the silence. However, the sounds that signaled he was connected to the internet did not follow. This snowstorm must be interfering with the reception. Yet he was unable to give up. Just as he was about to reconnect once more, the sliding door of the shrine burst open and 2 boys stomped in, their heads topped with snow. Without consciously realizing what he was doing, Koshiro must have glared at the intruders for entering without knocking and stepping all over the floor with their shoes on. Because the taller and obviously older of the boys apologized. "Sorry, it was Yamato. Can we stay here until the snow stops?" "I don't mind." Koshiro politely replied, a little flustered. Thanks, Yamato said, before he turned to dust off the snow that covered Takeru's hat and clothes. As the snow continued to fall with no sign of stopping, other children arrived at the shrine to take shelter. The oldest, wearing the armband of a leader, Joe Kido, Koshiro's classmate, Mimi Tachikawa, Sora Takanouchi, and an acquaintance Koshiro only knew through the required school club they shared, Taichi Yagami. At that time, none of the children would have ever imagined that the 7 people gathered here would soon find themselves involved in a long, long adventure. The snowstorm gradually stopped. As they stepped out of the shrine, the children were unable to hide their bewilderment as they surveyed the snowscape that looked incompatible against the blue summer sky. Yay! With a whoop of enjoyment, Takeru jumped onto the snow and scooped up a handful to form a ball. Hey brother, we should have a snowball fight. I guess so, Yamato said as he attentively watched over his cute younger brother. Next to him, a voice interrupted. Just what the hell is going on here? Taichi asked. The question wasn't directed at anyone particular. Taichi often had a bad habit of saying whatever he was thinking. Unaware of that, Joe raised his head up to look at the sky. Pushing his glasses up, he explained, there was probably a cold air mass in the skies that caused it to snow. Maybe it travelled all the way here from America. Mimi said, sounding impressed. You must be pretty smart, Joe-senpai. Oh, it's nothing like that, Joe said modestly, although his face showed more than a hint of pride. Watching him, Taichi decided that he would not get along. Joe's skin was sickly pale, and even though it was the middle of summer, he must have been so absorbed with cram school that they had never gone swimming in a pool even once this entire summer. Anyway, Joe, Yamato said. The reason he didn't add honorifics to Joe's name was because he thought they were on the same grade. Has that snowstorm passed? Yeah, it has. You see there are no clouds in the sky? No matter how cold the temperature is, the snow won't be able to just form without clouds. That's common sense. Joe lectured boastfully before he caught himself. I didn't mean that you guys didn't have common sense by that. Don't get the wrong impression. His cover-up sounded weak, and he knew it. Seeing Yamato's eyebrows furl for a split second into an annoyed expression, Joe realized that he had screwed up. Hey, by the way, said Takeru, who had been in the middle of making a snowman. He stopped patting the snow to point at the sky. What's that? That's not a cloud, is it? Everyone looked up. An enormous, transparent curtain that shone iridescently like a soap bubble was floating gently above them. Is that an aurora? Sora asked, her eyes wide with disbelief. But being able to see an aurora in Japan is just... Suddenly, something unbelievable happened. A mysterious spectacle that drew everyone's attention. Right at that moment, within the aurora, something glimmered. It wasn't just coming from one source, but many. Thinking that his eyes were playing tricks, Taichi shut and opened them again. The lights were still there. They weren't flickering any longer, but glowing stronger and stronger. It wasn't long before Taichi realized that this was because these lights were heading towards them. Something's coming! Sora and Yamato also noticed. They're balls of light! Are they meteorites? Even Mimi and Joe, with his weak eyesight, was soon able to see them as the lights approached closer and closer. They were 7 spheres of light. Watch out! All of them dove for cover. Yamato threw himself over Takeru to protect him. Bang! The force of the impact caused a pillar of snow more than 2 meters high to rise up. One could only imagine the staggering amount of power behind it to cause such a thing. Fortunately, none of the children were hurt. That was scary, Mimi said as she stood up. Her face, however, was not as pale as Joe's, who had been standing next to her. In fact, she appeared to be slightly amused, as if the entire thing had been an accident. What in the world are they? Driven by curiosity, Koshiro ran to the spot where the pillar of snow had risen. The mysterious falling objects had plunged deep into the dirt, forming large holes in the layer of snow that rested above it. Koshiro was about to dig his hand through one of the holes. With a "Hiya!" he quickly drew it back. A beam of soft light shot out from inside the holes, and something came floating out. There were 7 of them. What is that? Taichi asked, his voice raised in a hysteric pitch. The 7 unknown objects emitted light as gentle as a bride's silk headdress flew individually into each child's hand. It was a piece of equipment, with a screen similar to a pager. On its surface, one could see particles of light creating a haze of colours. All 7 of these things began to beep furiously. The instant that happened, the aurora above them started to shake violently, as if there was a curtain being blown savagely. Is it because of all the electromagnetic waves? Koshiro murmured to himself, but even he knew it was a baseless hypothesis. The aurora's trembling grew more aggressive, appearing as if it would pull itself from the heavens and fly away at any moment. The surface of the sky itself began to shine brightly. At the same time, something impossible happened. Even though the children were on a tall mountain, sufficiently high above the sea level, water exploded upwards, rising vertically to show a very large, smooth surface. Its center parted open to reveal water going in, as though it were a huge waterfall on its side. With a thunderous roar, it sucked in the air surrounding it. The cold atmosphere was not being drawn to the bottom, but to some place parallel to the ground. And then, Seized by a power they could not dispute, the 7 children were sucked inside. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was just part 1 of... I'm not sure how many parts I would do. I want to do them in like half-an-hour bursts because like I will kind of lose my ability to talk throughout that time, and I try to find certain breakpoints in the readings, and also it just hopefully makes it easier to listen. So that was part 1. I thought it would be a good time to start this series on Odaiba Day itself. I'm not recording it on Odaiba Day, but it's coming out on Odaiba Day, so hopefully that's something that everyone can enjoy. So please thank Onkei for this, because I'm just reading Onkei's translations. I'm not able to, I can attempt to read my light novels, and it's great, but my translation would not even be slightly as good as what Onkei can produce. So thanks to Onkei, and please, thank Onkei, please. I'll link Onkei's website and all the social media that I can in the link dump, so you can go thank Onkei, because, yeah. While I'm saying thank you to our Patreon supporters, Joe, Stephen Reeves, who is Wilding64 on Archive of Our Own, Kaidawashi, Chisai, who you can follow on Tumblr at Chisai236, Kyle, Delady Bugman, whose anime blog you can read at deladybug.productions, Tom, Glitchgo, Anthony, who is at AntoClassic on Twitter, Lizmet, who is Alekmon on Tumblr, Nicholas, Sam, Noam, Spiral, Keith, from the Friends and Firelight podcast, Alex Ray Snyder, who is at Alex Ray Snyder on Twitter, and Magnus. And you can make a one-off donation on our PayPal, which you found in the description. It's paypal.me/airjamon. You can contact us and stay updated. You can email us at LostinTranslationmon@gmail.com. You can follow us at Translationmon on Twitter, and you can find us on LostinTranslationmon on Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We have a discussion thread on With the Will and a Reddit thread in the Digimon subreddit. And we would appreciate if you would review us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and any other podcast listening app that you use. And we have a website, vote in polls, check our release schedule, and our blog posts, and more. So thanks for listening, and let us know if you enjoyed this episode, because if you don't enjoy this episode, I won't do the whole book series, obviously, but just thought it'd be a bit fun to do something a bit different, especially since Onkei just finished that translation. So again, thanks Onkei, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye!